Okay, everybody, welcome back to the session. We're going to have 10 minutes hearing from the 4 student interns who are working on the project that Sharon is managing. So we're going to hear what their experiences have been like. And they are Catherine Dawson from UCC, Aoibhinn Gilmartin from UCD, Alice Hynes from University of Limerick, and Michaela Waters from Maynooth University. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine. I am the UCC intern, as just mentioned by Margaret, and we will just be going off presenting some of our perspectives on the pivot online and continuing to learn online. So this is based on our experiences over the past 11 months, all of the challenges that we faced as students, as well as all the opportunities we've seen, and just getting our unique key tips and all of the key resources that we really loved and required over the past while. If you want to slide. So I'll be first talking about some online assessments and how I think they've really improved over the past while. Yeah. So I think that one of the biggest opportunities has been using online assessments, especially with the fact that it's the only form of assessments at the moment, but I really want to see it continue on into the new experience that we have over the next couple of years, because we have to learn from this rather than just, going back. So one of the big things I've absolutely loved is using continuous assessment as learning rather than 100% exam at the end of the year. It really, I think, improved my engagement with just the content, not necessarily with live lectures, but I really found that I studied more of the content and really got a deeper understanding and deeper learning from it. And then it even encouraged my independent learning. So using the library resources that I might not have used before, especially because I'm in a maths degree, we don't really use too many books, everything is mostly online, but I've really found that I've now needed more resources because I've been more engaged with the content and really wanted to learn more about it. And another thing as well is students really miss interaction, but they really miss their friends. They really miss interaction with other students as well as with staff members. And using online assessments in group work especially, I think has really improved that experience for me working online. So it creates that interaction with students, maybe people you know or people you don't, but it gives us something when, I haven't left the house in 2 weeks other than to go to Tesco. It's really helped us, I find, just make those connections that we might not have. And also it's a brand new experience and it really prepped me for the working world. Learning more about how to do group work has even helped me with this job, creating content with other students around the around the country, but even now just it really helped me organize my own life. So I think that's just really important to keep in mind when we try to put more blended learning in for the next couple of while. So I think the next person to speak is Alice. Yes, on her teaching and learning experiences.
Yep, hello everyone. My name's Alice. I am the University of Limerick student intern on the Enhancing Digital Teaching and Learning project. I'm just going to talk for a moment about sort of workload and balancing workload throughout the semester. So last semester was totally overwhelming in terms of just the amount of content we had to cover in the 12 weeks. We had no study week last semester, and for me it was my first experience in online learning, so I had a lot to learn in terms of just getting used to that mode of delivery, but also 12 weeks of content to like cram. And we had final exams, we had assignments, everything was due in week 12. We had some lecturers pushing deadlines out to like Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, and it was already a stressful enough Christmas, but with everything to do with COVID, it was just such a struggle. So I'm expecting a lot better from this semester already, for the fact that we have a study week, we have Easter break, and we also have exam weeks. So the workload is already sort of spread a lot thinner for me. I've got assignment deadlines throughout the semester rather than just all in week 12 this semester, which is brilliant for me. My real challenge this semester to my workload is, I think, readings, essentially. I don't mind the lectures. I quite like lectures to be sort of bite-sized chunks. I know Roisin and Anya both mentioned this, about keeping things quite sort of short and sweet, and then we just engage with that and move on to, you know, another short and sweet bit. I find lectures provide really, really long readings that could take me, like, to really engage with them and go through them like start to finish, even take notes. It could take me like 3-4 hours to get through a reading, which just isn't engaging. I don't get to talk to any other students about it. It's just something I've done completely on my own. And almost 70% of my workload at the minute could be just academic readings, which is really, really heavy. And I think I would get much more benefit from an hour lecture where we talk about a reading or engage with my groups, you know, spend some time talking about an assignment and learn from other people, instead of just doing hours and hours on end of readings, which I'm finding really difficult at the moment. Yeah, so that's all from me. Thank you very much. I'll pass on to Aoibhinn, I think is next.
Hi, my name is Aoibhinn, and I'm going to be speaking about the benefits and challenges of online engagement. And I saw Alan asked a question in the chat about this, so hopefully my points will be relevant to his question. This semester so far anyway, I've noticed a big difference in lecturers' attempts to engage with students or be interactive online. And they're doing this by organising live Zoom chats or question and answer sessions. And one major benefit that I've found for this is that obviously the social interaction, which Catherine mentioned as well, it's a really great opportunity to get to maybe talk to your peers or different people in your class, especially when lecturers organise breakout rooms for different discussion points or debates. And this can also be really reassuring, because sometimes when you're at home doing a pre-recorded lecture by yourself, you're very isolated and you don't really understand, or you don't really know or realise if other people are struggling with the content as well. And sometimes you can feel isolated and like you're the only one that's struggling with the material. But if you get the chance to interact with other people in the module, you realise that other people are having the same issues as you. Another benefit of these kind of question answer or discussion sections that lecturers have been organising this semester is that it allows students chance to ask lecturers questions about topics or assignments that they mightn't have felt that they were comfortable asking on email or approaching the lecture alone, but they can do this in the live Q&A or discussion Zoom. However, there is a few challenges associated with this mode of teaching. Obviously, it mitigates the flexibility benefit of online learning, as there's a specific time students now have to log in to participate in the Zoom. And in other cases, it's causing a timetable overload, and you end up with far more hours than you ever would in a non-virtual environment. For instance, what's usually an allocated 2-hour lecture slot can be turned into a 2-hour pre-recorded lecture, so the lecturer can deliver the content. But then you also, on top of that, have a 1 or 2 hour discussion or question and answer session, which adds to the students' workload and stress levels. So if this mode of teaching is attempted, then time constraints should be balanced accordingly. Lastly, just one thing that I've identified as a problem with this format is when the lecturers are delivering the primary content via pre-recorded lecture and then have these question and answer sessions, there's sometimes kind of a lack of focus or structure for these sessions, and no real focal point, which means that time ends up being wasted for students and lecturers. Yeah, I'm going to just pass you on to Michaela now to discuss various beneficial tools and resources.
Hi everyone, my name is Michaela and I am the student intern for Maynooth University. So I'm going to be talking about this, and I've practiced it loads and I'm just under 2 minutes. So absolutely fly through it. So first is for engagement. I really enjoyed using Kahoot, Padlet and Mentimeter. I think it's one way involved with material and really helping you learn it. For study and revision, I find Quizlet is really, really helpful, no matter what the subject is. For me, I found, especially for business and economics, I think it's a great way of just getting to know the material. And then different guides that we have available in Maynooth University is for Moodle, so the virtual learning environment, and Apps Anywhere is a new resource that is really helpful for us. The library resources that are on offer in Maynooth University are really helpful, especially because it's currently closed at the moment. So we have the library search for essential and optional further reading. I think that's really handy because most lecturers will tell you whether it's required or if it's just helpful. Then we have the library online subject guides. They have them for absolutely everything. And included in that is different books and things that you could possibly look at. And then we have the past exam papers, which are available online using your student login. The list, library and information skills tutorials were brilliant when they were in person, and now they have video guides available, so you can still have the same experience, just not in person. They have different writing guides, so one for academic writing and then one for successful searching for your essay or different material that you're using. And then they have working remotely, so they have a digital on-demand service, which means if you request for a certain book or a paper to be digitalized and scanned, they will do that for you and send it on to you, which is a really good thing when we can't get to on campus at the moment. And then next is referencing and avoiding plagiarism. So they have loads of referencing styles available for different departments. Citation linker. So this is really, really handy. If you have the reference for the book that you want, you can just search it in and it'll be brilliant because it just finds it straight away for you. And next is the critical skills resources. So EDTL in Maynooth University are publishing this tool guide soon for use with different assessment types. So for example, how to create a podcast. So that will be available soon. And then here's our Instagram account, edtl.iua. So do look us up because we are publishing lots of amazing things. And I think I'm just under 2 minutes. So if anyone has any comments or questions.
Margaret, I think you're on mute. Are you speaking?
You there, Margaret?
Yes, I was just saying that the 4 students, they clearly articulated what I pick up from the students and what has been my experience on the other end. So thank you very much. We're a little bit behind on time, so we will take questions at the end, but thank you very much. I find that really, really useful and very, very well put together and very clearly presented. So our next speaker is from, not originally, I don't think, but he's based in Galway, and it's Kristopher Meen, and he's the Assistant Librarian in Academic Skills and Marketing and Engagement since 2016. And he's going to speak to us about the what is called the online pivot of the 2020 semester, something none of us could have foreseen, of course, how pivotal online teaching would become, in fact, central. And so he's going to explain how it has enhanced their library and research know-how, LARK, using an OER approach. So you're probably good to go there, Chris, are you? Chris?
Yes, sorry. I think I'm
Yes.
I think I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to share there. Can
Okay.
everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you actually seeing the slideshow?
No.
No. Okay. Come on there. Oh, there we go. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great, great. Well, I don't know. No, I'm not from Galway originally. I'm from Canada, so it's actually snowing here in Galway, which is, just tremendous. I'm really excited about this, and so are my 2 8-year-olds. So that's great. So what I'm actually talking about is, Library and Research Know-How, which is an online resource that we put together as an open educational resource. Just last spring, as we were looking ahead to the forthcoming semester. So I'm just going to talk about what it is and why we put it together and how we wound up using it and how it went. This is it right here. This is Library and Research Know-How, or LARK, an open educational resource. So it's just a little screenshot. If you were to scroll down in it, you would see that it has an open license on it, and that it was remixed from another open textbook, a Pressbooks textbook created called Choosing and Using Sources from Ohio State University. You can kind of get an idea of what the learning outcomes are by having a look at the menu on the left-hand side. Pretty standard information literacy stuff. Creating a search strategy, the databases, citing, referencing, etc. And then that tab on library workshops and tutorials, that's actually a set of recorded playlists of workshops that were part of our academic skills program. I'd already been working on doing playlists of these for distance learners. Our classrooms, the focus of them has been very much on sort of learner-centered activities, but we were hearing from faculty that they were actually interested in recordings of the learning outcomes, and so I was actually sort of redoing them in a lecture style, and in that context, already sort of using them, pulling in open educational resource materials. And creating them as OERs as well. So in a sense, what this was doing was, what LARK was doing is bringing together some online resources that were just kind of, it was just an organizational thing. There was a bit that was sort of all over the place, bringing it all together in one spot, and then, remixing something. So we had the videos, but myself and Mike Small from the academic skills team in particular were interested in doing some sort of like a textbooky kind of thing, but with interactive elements to it, which are sort of included in this guide. So yes, there we were back in May 2020, like everybody else, thinking about the autumn semester and not really knowing what to expect. Usually at Galway, what happens is we get a lot of training requests for talks embedded in people's classes, and we really didn't know what to expect. So, but we knew that people at that point were talking about, yes, as Sharon was sort of noting, it wasn't really earlier on that it wasn't really working, forcing people to come to lectures at a particular point in time, and that everybody needed to have asynchronous versions of whatever it is that they were doing. So we just thought, well, what are people going to be asking us for? Are they going to be coming and asking us to do lectures at a particular time on a particular day, or will they be asking for recordings of our lectures, or what? So we thought, well, let's get this in order at least, so that we can have this to offer people, and then where they want us to do sort of blended style talks and whatnot, we can sort of work that all together. So it's based on an older resource that was called with the same name, which was a great resource created back in 2007. And myself and Mike really loved this resource. We both actually wrote papers about it. We liked it so much. We're big fans. I actually wrote a paper for Sharon Flynn, in fact, for a course that I was taking from Sharon. So so we thought, okay, well, let's sort of call this a kind of a redo of this resource, which needed an update anyways. And my paper actually was sort of looking at this, addressing it as from an open educational resource perspective, and talking about what could be done to make it more like an open educational resource, because it was openly available on the internet, but what it didn't have was an open license. And, why was this a particular interest right now? Well, because, I think it's an interesting space to be exploring within the context of a digital pivot, certainly. But more specifically at NUI Galway, open educational resources feature in the new strategic document through 2025. So this is the relevant piece here. We will create an open scholarly community in which the process, okay, that's sort of more on the open scholarship side, but at the end there's the promotion of the use and production of open educational resources. So a means of sort of looking a little bit more into this OER space. And so in doing that, I wanted to go through the process of actually, finding open educational resources that were of relevance to information literacy, and then remixing it in terms of localizing it. And that's what I did. So we went out and found this open textbook, which we thought was really good. We really liked how it was organized. We liked the learning outcomes. So then it was a matter of figuring what to do, because this was a Pressbooks book, so we couldn't remix it within Pressbooks. So we had to transfer it to a LibGuide, and then take out all the references to Ohio, and then put in references to Galway and this kind of thing. So it wasn't too bad. It didn't take too long, and we wound up with a pretty nice guide that turned out to be fairly useful. In the end, we did get a fair variety of requests from people in September. So there were folks who just wanted sort of recordings to be used in an asynchronous kind of a manner. But then we also got requests for talks. And so, I tried to embed the OER within those. Either, I would say, okay, have a look, in a flipped way, we'd say, have a look at the resource first, and I'll come in and do a Q&A. Which didn't work out that well. What worked out better was when I, had a talk and I said, okay, there's a little section with a little video and an MCQ afterwards. Take 5 minutes to go through that, and then we can sort of come afterwards and discuss it. You can tell me any questions that you have about it after that, which worked well as an approach. It was used fairly well in the end. It was only there for one semester, and it wound up being one of our top 10 most used library guides. I didn't get a lot of feedback, even though there's a sort of a feedback form in the guide. So there was an instructor that I got in touch and said that he wanted to embed the guide in his Blackboard this semester, and said that I could consult with him and his students at the end of this semester to get a little bit more of more sort of direct feedback that way. So hopefully that'll work out. What next? Well, this was indirectly influential, more or less directly or indirectly influential in moving forward with an OER production project. So right now we have an OER a project where we're looking at what supports the library in partnership with CELT at NUI Galway can do to support the production of open educational resources. So as part of that project, we've actually purchased a subscription to Pressbooks. So what I'd really like to do in the next few months is actually do kind of a Pressbooks to Pressbooks remixing of that textbook, as would have been really handy to do originally. But we'll see if we have time to do that. And I think I'm at the end of my 8 minutes, so
okay.
That's it.
Thank you very, very much, Chris. It was very clear and informative. We're really stuck for time, so I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Speakers, I should say, are Susan Boyle and Jenny Call from UCD. So Susan is the liaison librarian for business and law at UCD Library. And Jenny has worked in UCD since 2006 as liaison librarian to both medicine and diagnostic imaging and the College of Arts and Celtic Studies. So they're going to tell us about their experience with COVID and online teaching and what impact it has had on their role as liaison librarians.
Hi everyone, well, I'm Jenny, and Susan and I are going to talk about the library at home reaching our students. Next slide please, Susan. This is a summary of some of the content, next slide Susan, created by our team over the pivot to the COVID situation and everyone working remotely. So Susan and I are going to focus on just a small piece of what we've done, and we're going to talk about creating tutorials, infographics, and online communication. Next slide, please, Susan. In 2019 and 2020, UCD actually rewrote their plagiarism policy. So there was a renewed focus on this. So along with this and the shift to online learning for the students, and the fact that referencing and writing was so important, and the increase in plagiarism reported around assessment, our resources were more important. And just move on, please, Susan. So this is a suite of what we have available at the university library. We've got the Academic Integrity Guide and liaison workshops, which work very, very well. And then we've 5 articulated interactive tutorials that were created in 2014. So while these have a good educational value, they don't have a big usage for the student. Move on, please. So with this in mind, I chose the most popular referencing styles and decided to remake the tutorials. So I used PowerPoint and to create the tutorials, and I uploaded these to YouTube. So if you move on, please, Susan. This was very easy. For the content of the tutorials, I decided to just have myself writing an actual assignment, inserting citations, doing the referencing, and using OneSearch to get the citation and the Academic Integrity Guide. So the tutorials themselves were aimed at students that were just beginning university, maybe returning to education, or those who weren't used to the Western style of writing. So the Harvard tutorial itself has had very good viewing figures, and the other tutorials need a little bit of a push. Move on, please, Susan. So in terms of what we've learned, or I've learned from doing this, well, I'd say PowerPoint was very easy to use. It was a very gentle learning curve. I've used Captivate and Articulate, and I'd say it's more alike to Captivate. If you're in a library where budget is an issue, Office is a lot less expensive than any of the e-learning packages. By uploading the video to YouTube, it meant we wouldn't have platform problems, because in the past, there's been difficulties in accessing Articulate in the various platforms. Also, YouTube was great in terms of guessing what I was saying when I narrated the tutorials. It was 99% accurate. So I just need to do a tiny bit of editing to make the closed captions available, and then they'd be available to all the students who need them. Move on, please, Susan. And then finally, YouTube, it's easier for the students to access. I'd looked at some of Sharon and her team's student feedback, and the students had said the various different platforms, some of them are difficult to access due to broadband issues. So YouTube was very easy. I'd recommend the use of tags, adding tags within the YouTube environment just to increase discoverability. And finally, I did have a problem with saving. I saved in a synced folder online, my first finished tutorial, and it got completely corrupted. So you have to create them locally on your computer. So I'll just move on to Susan now.
Thanks, Jenny. So trying to reach students was a bit of a road trip, and I'm Susan, the College Liaison for Business and Law. So back at lockdown 1, my main goal was to support remote students with the survival basics, get them up and running with how to access ebooks, e-journals and databases. And I created a 10-minute presentation on this and also the changes in the library for both my law and business colleges. These were advertised in our online library COVID guide. And having to make changes, I couldn't keep the same links in YouTube, so I had to make a version 1 and version 2. But they each reached 1,000+ views when you kind of added the versions together. So as a group strategy, the CLL team first developed some quick win topic tutorials. And at this time, I was inundated with queries, acclimatizing to remote working and juggling home parenting as well. So my personal focus then moved to targeting reoccurring issues cropping up in queries to relieve some of the pressure. I wanted to think of simple, easy, creative solutions to help students in my colleges who were grappling with similar issues remotely. So I used PowerPoint and VoiceOver to develop different learning supports. My Discovering Information series were a series of recorded presentations I developed around finding information for broad umbrella topics on management, marketing, discovering research and law. And they were 20 to 30 minutes long and could be substituted in lieu of live classes if needed, and I did need that sometimes. My Quick Discover series complemented these. They were much shorter PowerPoints at 3 minutes long, demonstrating specific tasks like finding a law report. And I used templates, so I only had to change out certain slides, and it saved time and increased output. My library top tips then were visual aids I created to explain searching concepts or research pathways and takeaway ideas, and I used tip cards and other infographics. And together these all made up a suite of supports that I called a welcome pack. So the College Liaison team identified key quick win topics that would be useful for all the CLL team to have learning supports on. And we divvied out the topics, drafted and consulted each other for feedback. And I created this one on filters. It's a 4-minute video to help students retrieving too many searching results and had over 390 views so far. I tried to make it as visual as possible, and these are some of the slides. The Quick Discover range compiled 4-minute videos tackling specific issues like finding Harvard Business Review, finding ebooks. They were packaged in a unique page in my subject lib guide called the Welcome Pack, and having them together in the one place gave a sense of a portfolio with the different colours that helped massively with queries. In addition to students, faculty also had questions and hadn't realised that not all of our ebooks had unlimited licenses. This infographic was used to create awareness about the cost of ebooks, license limitations and availability, and to explain how to find the license for ebooks academics were recommending on the reading list. This was one of the most popular infographics I created, aimed at research postgraduate students, called Approaching Your Research Question in 8 Easy Steps. This was promoted on the website scrolling banner. It proved popular on Twitter with over 2,200 impressions so far, and was picked up by other universities. It was also promoted on the internal staff newsletter, so client services staff manning our new online chat would know about it. And there are plans to use it in more ways as a flyer for our postgraduate open day that's coming up. At the time, everything was moving really quickly. The CLLs used different routes, but we were responding effectively and all trying to get users comfortable on their learning journey to a good destination. Sometimes I felt I was going in the right direction. Other days were definitely more challenging when parenting and guilt balance took over. There were also exhilarating moments too when the content I'd created started to knit together into a solid offering. This is just a flavour of what Jenny and I created, but the other CLLs in the team also generated excellent, diverse content. So was it a smooth drive? There were definitely some challenges. Our content was buried in the website, so having the LibGuides welcome pack was invaluable. And tracking viewership, dispersal and control was difficult when we had to re-record due to COVID changes and the links needed changing. Remote technical issues with PowerPoint and sound in YouTube and headphones held us back. I would have liked more time to uncover hidden gaps rather than overt ones in understanding and find clever promotional opportunities to exploit. There were definitely benefits though. It illuminated the value of CLLs and their subject expertise. The welcome pack was a great boost for queries. I could select from it like a pick and mix, and it gave me a promotional eye-opener and eye-catching supports that added colour to our library updates to schools. We had great support from our outreach and other colleagues in collections, and it really highlighted the experience and talent in our CLL team. Their resilience, expertise and initiative was really impressive. So setting out the route was daunting with no map, but looking back, it's amazing to see what we accomplished, and it's great to have this leg of the journey done. And these are just some more links that we've included to kind of help you see what else the CLL team has done. Thank you.
Thanks so much to both Susan and Jenny there. That was really, really interesting. So great to see the use of infographics and just everything being designed with the students in mind. So I'm just going to move on to our next speaker and introduce our next speaker, who's also part of the CONUL Teaching and Learning Committee. So Lisa Callaghan, just while she's getting her slides ready there. So Lisa is DCU's Library and Digital Literacy Coordinator, and she's a subject librarian to the Faculty of Computing and Engineering. She's worked as a subject librarian in various disciplines for over 20 years. She's responsible for the development, promotion and oversight of information literacy programs and initiatives in DCU. She works with a team, subject librarians a team of subject librarians at DCU to ensure the effective integration of IL learning outcomes and interventions into course curricula. And she also coordinates and manages the ongoing development of LETs and other learning resources and supports. So I think we're going to hear more about LETs now today from Lisa. Are you good to go?
I'm good to go. I hope you can see those slides okay. Yeah,
absolutely. We can hear you.
Great.
And see you, so
perfect. Thanks a lot. And I'm going to give new meaning to lightning talk, because I know we're quite stuck for time. So anyway, it's recorded, so you'll be able to listen back. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our online information literacy tutorial, which we call LETS, and how we've maximised engagement since its inception in 2008. And just to note that it is just one of the ways in which we support online learning at DCU. So like everybody else, when we moved to remote learning, we really kind of needed to review our existing supports for online learning, which kind of took place, I suppose, between March and September of last year. And in response to this, we increased the amount on and also the type of videos that we had available. We added additional content to our LibGuides and actually updated our website. We moved to online delivery of orientation, and we also developed an array of materials to support module-specific delivery, both synchronous and asynchronous. I say that in one line as if it was really easy and not much work. It was a huge amount of work, but not for today's talk. But what I should say is that having an already established online information literacy tutorial when we were kind of preparing and planning and developing those resources was really, really useful, because we were already all really familiar with what was there and what needed to be done to kind of augment that. So just a very quick overview about LETS. As I said, it was first launched in 2008, and it was originally developed to extend the reach of our information literacy programme and to enable self-paced independent learning. The majority of the classes that we deliver in DCU are embedded, so they're kind of they're embedded at the programme and module level. So it's kind of not scalable, and we knew there would always be students that would fall through the gaps. So we really wanted something there for those students that we maybe weren't reaching. So that's kind of why it was developed. But we do now also use it to support, obviously, online learning, blended learning, and in kind of flipped classroom scenarios as well. So the content is written by DCU subject librarians, and it's for DCU students. So it's very much in the context of DCU and what a DCU student will expect to encounter on their journey. We've got multiple instructional videos and how-to videos, activities to test learning along the way, and optional quizzes which can be adopted and actually are adopted by academic staff to embed and use as a form of summative assessment. So just a little bit about how it's developed over the years. We've had a number of different iterations of LETS, and I suppose going back to 2008, we launched it as a web-based module, moved it to Articulate Storyline in 2013, which is when we first hosted it on Loop, which has been really significant, and when we developed those quizzes. Also in 2018, we moved to the H5P freeware, which was embedded or integrated in our VLA Loop, which is Moodle, we call it Loop in DCU, and that at that time we also broke it into kind of smaller chunks and also offered us improved analytics and integration and things like that. So just to say that kind of through this process of continual development, obviously using best pedagogical practice available, we've kept it up to date and we've kept it relevant. We've also used the latest technology that has been available, and that's kind of in line with what the university are supporting at the time as well and promoting. And I would say the success of it can also be attributed to the high degree of collaboration that has been involved in keeping it up to date and keeping it relevant. Both in the library and outside the library. In terms of in the library, it's a real team effort, both the development of the content and the tutorial itself. And it's really important that the people that are responsible for the content also are the ones that use it in their information literacy. So there's buy-in from the beginning in terms of that kind of team approach. Also collaborating with other support units has been really important, in particular our teaching enhancement unit, who we have worked very closely with in developing the Moodle capabilities. And it's really kind of led to LETS becoming, I suppose, an established or well-known and I wouldn't say brand, but you know what I mean, an actual resource in the university. It's been great for our reputation in the teaching and learning space, and it's also helped to raise our profile and led to other collaborations, which I might get to tell you about one at the end of the presentation. So owing to this kind of success, we've been increasingly asked by academics if we can embed the tutorial itself in their own module pages. And kind of up to this year, the answer has been yes, but no. So technically it was possible. However, it would mean that we would have to create or download a separate object and upload it to their page. We really weren't keen to do this because it would mean we had no visibility on what was happening with it. We'd have no centralized reporting mechanism. And also version control was the problem. It would mean that we couldn't actually see if we made a change to Let's in the main page, we would have to update it on every single instance as well. So that wasn't ideal. So in 2018, when we moved to the H5P, it did offer that kind of better functionality, and more recently implementing the subcourse setting in Moodle has meant a greater degree of embedding and increased engagement with academic staff and students. I can go into a bit more detail with that and anybody that is using Moodle and how we've actually implemented that, but we have this year we've embedded it in over 20 modules across most faculties, and almost 3,000 students have completed at least one of the tutorials, with over 1,500 completing all 10 of them. Just a couple of implementations of it this year which were really successful. One was a first year critical skills module in the business school, and it was actually their input that kind of led us, were one of the drivers to lead us to this approach. So we were able to reach 636 students using the online tutorial, but it was just one element of the library input. There were other elements as well, but I know that reaching that amount of students can be difficult, and I know Ronan, the business librarian, is keen to keep this going even in a post-COVID situation. Another one was an online master's where they ran kind of a skills refresher in digital and academic skills, and we had over half the students achieving 100% completion. So finally, just to mention one of the successful collaborations that has come as a result of our work on Let's, and this is a university-wide initiative aimed at getting students settled into university and introducing to the skills and skills needed to succeed. It's called Discover DCU, and we came on board in 2018. The whole project itself is led by Student Support and Development in conjunction with the Teaching Enhancement Unit, and we led on the development of the Discover Research Skills module, which I've highlighted there. So that's been a really successful collaboration, and it's really served as a bridge between Student Support and Development online resources and library resources as well. And the content of that module was based on the Let's tutorial, a kind of condensed version of it. So I think I've tried to keep as much in time there, and I'll just finish up by saying thanks for listening, and you can get in touch if you'd like to know more. Thanks.
And I would like to say apologies, I lost my connection. And Lisa, that was a very, very encouraging talk. The level of collaboration between the technical people and the library. So thank you very much, and I apologize again for the blackout.
No problem.
So so we'll hand over now, I think, to Niall and Sharon.
Yeah.
For the
We're going directly, thanks to all the speakers in that segment, but we don't have time for direct questions. We're going over to Sharon now, who's going to lead us or lead the conversation with us on all things raised this morning. So, and we'll finish for 12:30. So hopefully you can bear with us.
Thanks, Niall. I have my my granny shawl on me. It's started snowing. It's coming down quite heavily here.
It's a real blizzard in Galway at the moment, isn't it?
It really is. It's fantastic. So we have some really great discussion going on the Padlet, and I'm going to pick out one of the questions which has it's been a bit of a thread coming through a lot of the talks today, and I'd love to get a couple of people maybe to chat about it. And it's a challenge that somebody's identified, and I think it's a very common challenge. You can see it there on the screen. With student cameras off, it's hard to gauge student engagement. So hard to get the natural flow of chat and banter that you have in person. And the question, I suppose, is without getting the feedback that you would in a classroom to ensure that students are engaged in learning, what tips do people have? So I'd love, you know, if anybody would like to maybe raise their hand and talk a little bit about that. I know that some of our speakers today already had some great tips. And I think as well, we'd be really interested in hearing from some of our students on that as well. So would anybody like to speak a little bit on that? Or perhaps you could use the chat as well if you have any brilliant ideas. Alice, would you like to come in? Sorry, no, I'll invite Alice in there.
Yeah, so for group work especially, I would say I really think meetings with our lecturers are really beneficial. So I had one recently just this week where there was 5 members and we all turned up. We had a half-hour meeting with our lecturer. She can so easily gauge whether we're engaging with the content. I mean, I know it's about an assignment, but you can tell whether we're interested. She's talking to us and asking us like what we're finding good or bad about the module. So I know it's a big ask for lecturers, but if you have that chance, I think meeting your students in small groups, assignment groups or something like that is really beneficial for both the student and yourself, I think.
Thanks, Alice. Niall, did you want to come in on that one?
Actually going to invite a colleague, Niall O'Brien, in, who's been monitoring the Padlet feedback and discussion. I wonder, Niall, have you anything significant there?
Yeah, so that was the first question that came through, or one of the first questions that came through the Padlet. There was another interesting one about an opportunity around flipping the classroom. You know, Chris and some other people mentioned that. And the comment was something that has been very beneficial is the ability to do a flipped classroom model, deliver live online tutorials, record them, and then make them available to staff and students. The tutorials have been embedded in modules, and then we have been able to do live Q&A sessions with students who have already seen the tutorials and have engaged with their content, but have more specific questions, a much better use of time. And I suppose have techniques changed for the flipped classroom, maybe in an online context? We were all doing it to some extent before the pandemic. I don't know, has anyone any thoughts on that?
Can I just jump in there, Sharon and Niall, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Just
Absolutely,
very quickly, what I think is that this might be one of the areas that you have to put aside what happens in the physical classroom and see the online environment is just in this particular instance, is very different. So sometimes I think you can just change it a bit. But when we say, and it's coming up there, as you said, we can't see them, we can't really gauge it. Certainly for undergraduate teaching, most people will keep their cameras off. And obviously Alice mentioned if you have very small groups, then it could work and you get that face-to-face, a little bit interaction. And I think that's where we have to start using the polls and the techniques that some of us mentioned earlier, but also start to trust in things like the chat features, people using emojis, the like functions. And I suppose, you know, don't expect that kind of normal interaction that I can see someone's face and I'll gauge it from that, but maybe gauge with their level of participation. And I suppose a quick rule of thumb I use is that because for most of us librarians, we're doing one class. So let's say an hour, it could be 50 minutes to an hour. So we don't have that ongoing relationship that the academics have in many cases. And maybe that, you know, you have something informal at the start. I would suggest having kind of 3 key learning objectives in the hour session. And if you allow, say, 10 or 12 minutes for each of those, within your 10 or 12 minutes, have maybe your own part where you're talking, instructing, showing your screen for somewhere between the 7 to 10 minutes, and build in a 2-minute time where you're going back to chat, you're putting a question out there, and maybe build towards the last part being some activity the students can complete. It is a bit weird. And like Roisin said, I don't tend to do much in breakout rooms. I just ask people to do it off screen and collaborate and bring people back. And I guess you just go with what people are comfortable with, a mixture of reporting back in the chat and unmuting and saying something. And generally students by the end of a session will be happy to do that. And it's not the same as physically seeing it, but I think that can be okay. I think that's fine is how I feel about it at this stage. Interestingly, and I know I'd love to hear in a little bit if Alan is still online, because he's been continuously reminding us, but do we know, we think this works, how are the students finding it? So I would love to hear from the students in turn if they feel that approach sounds like it's meaningful for them in an engagement way.
Thanks, Sonia. Marta, I see that your microphone is off. Would you like to come in on any of that?
Yes, Sharon. I was the one who put that comment on the Padlet, and it was talking mostly about an experience that my colleague Diarmuid Stokes and myself have had with mostly sessions that we've done with doctoral researchers or postgraduate students for things like systematic reviews. And we used to do live sessions. We were using the classroom that the library has available, which only fits 35 people. And sometimes they were 2-hour sessions with very complex amounts of information. And we always felt at the end of them that there were a lot more questions that we could answer and that there were things that we couldn't address within the session. So now what's happening is we did an online session last year in May, and a lot of academics have asked for that session to be embedded in their modules. They direct the students to that session, which is actually quite long still. But what happens is the students have a look at the recording in their own time, they chunk it the way they need it, and then they come back to us with much more relevant and focused questions. So we feel like they can access the general information that they need from the recording, and then we can address the specific needs that they have for their own research. So that's really working well.
That's really interesting, Marta, and thank you for giving us that background to the question, but also you know, explaining how this has been working for you. I wonder if any of our students would like to respond to Anya's question about engagement. Rory, I see your hand is up there.
So I think in the online environment, I think probably the expectation is that the only way of interacting is through the webcam being on and then speaking. But I think it's a very good point that when using products such as Zoom or MS Teams, there's actually a lot of other ways you can interact, and that for a lot of students actually suits them a lot better. So for example, the chat function, as Anya said, is very useful. But one thing that came up, I think, was one of our EDTL webinars last week was using emojis. I think which are very popular. If you could encourage people maybe just to react using emojis in the chat box, it can be a good way just to kind of a feeling or a thought in a character without having to go into too much detail. And it can be a nice way to make students feel engaged. And as well, that there's the built-in reactions on Zoom, like I know we're raising and lowering our hands, but there's the clapping reaction as well. So I think that it's worth exploring as well, polls and Mentimeter ways apart from expecting students to come on the microphone with the webcam on, the other ways that they can contribute to lectures in the virtual environment.
Thanks, Rory. Chris, I saw you had something in there. I wonder, would you like to say a little bit about sort of using icebreakers, or as I sort of call it, just being human when you're in online sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just sort of, I don't hide the fact that I'm also very uncomfortable. You know, and it is sort of very much like speaking into a void. So, but if I'm feeling that way, then, you know, I think it just helps for me to actually articulate that to them and say, hey, this is weird for everyone. And something that would really be helpful to me is if you just said, yep, I can hear you. And that helps me, and I think it helps them as well. And Saoirse, you know, said articulated it very well, the low risk questions. So, you know, I think that's probably something to sprinkle in as you're going along, you know, just some very low risk, you know, questions about, you know, whatever. So that's one approach.
That's brilliant. I'm really interested in Emma's talking about effective questioning techniques. Emma, do you have a microphone? Would you be willing to come on and say a little bit about it?
Hi, sure, yeah.
Hi.
So as I said, I've come from a secondary school teaching background for the last couple of years. So it's really just, I suppose, an elaboration on what everyone's been saying about low risk questions. But I think that until you've sat down and maybe thought about it theoretically, it doesn't really sink in, you know, to just think about what kind of questions truly are really very safe, that anyone can feel confident chipping in on. And then just thinking about how you phrase your questions in a classroom setting, like it's a bit of an art really, and it takes a bit of thinking about it. And you know, you might have in mind what response you're looking for, what you want students to come back with. But if you haven't actually thought about the architecture, I suppose, of your questioning, you won't get the response that you want. It'll be a bit of a jumble. So I'm not explaining myself very well here on the spot, but as I said, on the PDST, the Professional Development Service for Teachers, which is a secondary school website, that's got actually a whole PowerPoint about how to ask questions well and things like that. So it's worth having a look at that, maybe if anyone's interested in following up, or just the phrasing, I suppose, is effective questioning. That's the kind of jargon that's used in teaching circles.
Thanks a million, Emma. And you know what, you're so right about being put on the spot. We had a bit of a discussion about this at one of our webinars recently. And no more than being in a physical room, nobody likes being put on the spot or having their name called suddenly to respond to a question. And I think one of the things that came up through the students during that was maybe to prepare them to set the expectation, you know, later on, I'm going to be asking this question, so maybe have a think about it now, or something like that could be quite useful. So thanks a million, and apologies. Lisa, would you like to come in? You're muted, Lisa.
I'm back. Sorry, it's just to echo some of the points that like Anya and that have been making, and everybody else really, about, you know, engaging with the students and that kind of human voice and all the things they've been talking about. But one thing I found useful was either having 2 library staff and members present, whereby we would chat to each other or ask things to each other, and it just kind of brought that kind of chatty kind of bit out. And even if the students weren't necessarily coming back and engaging, they felt there was a lovely human approach to that, and they liked that element. And another thing I've done is worked with the lecturer who maybe I'm delivering the session for, to have them come along, because they will have already built that rapport a little bit with the students. So again, just helping to kind of make people feel a bit more comfortable in that space. And then maybe at the end of the session, they would kind of ask me questions, maybe if they felt the students might have questions and weren't comfortable asking them. So they're just a couple of approaches that have worked for us in particular.
Brilliant, thanks Lisa. Susan, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, just it's not so much in terms of the teaching. Well, I guess you could use it there as well, but I just found with research consultations that I did over Zoom with maybe students I hadn't met before, so it was kind of a one-on-one situation like PhDs, and I found just maybe even offering a bit of reassurance at the beginning helped to open up the whole conversation, because, you know, they were kind of really struggling but didn't really want to admit it. And you know, they were kind of at a point, just it's a lonely road doing a PhD anyway, and just kind of offering some tips in that way I think really helped, and the students, you know, got so much out of it. So definitely just reassurance at the beginning, and, you know, to raise the confidence, I think is a big thing.
Thanks a million, Susan, you're absolutely right. And I see there's plenty of comments coming up in the chat box as well. One thing that struck me from a webinar early on this year, which was from the fantastic student survey that took place in UCC, was that some students were reporting feeling awkward in the online environment. And I could see that coming through as well a lot in some of the talks today. And we all do feel a little bit awkward. It's not a natural experience, but I think that admitting that and accepting that, acknowledging it, can be a really good start. Lisa, did you want to come in again? No, okay, that's fine. Just before and I am keeping an eye on time, but another thing that was coming up, just to maybe look at things from a slightly different angle, is around the opportunities that are arising out of this. And one of the opportunities that has been coming out has been really great support from the Teaching and Learning Centre, made it possible to upskill quickly, and so many opportunities to attend relevant webinars to quickly get clued into teaching online. And one of the things I find actually is there's nearly too much going on. You could be attending webinars and training sessions every day of the week, because it has really opened up things. You know, you could, here I am sitting in Galway, but I can attend training sessions all over the world, and really interesting sessions all over the world. But I'm just wondering, one thing that really drove our EDTL approach was the fact that we were building on work that was existing across our 7 universities, and in fact across higher education generally. And that collaboration, I think, allowed us to move quite quickly. And so I'm wondering about collaborations across this group, for example, but also maybe within an institution, internal collaborations. And I wonder if anybody would like to speak a little bit about maybe the opportunities that have opened up there. Can you see learnings from this that can be brought forward? Gone quiet. How about the staff and student collaborations? I really have found that we have benefited so much from collaborating more with our students. Has anybody got some nice examples or thoughts about how that could be further encouraged or built on within your environment? Very quiet.
Sharon, oops, sorry. I'll let Niall go ahead. Sorry, I can't put up my hand for some. No, Niall, you go ahead. I can't put up my hand for some reason, so apologies for jumping.
My one, I can't put up my hand either for some reason.
Oh, do you know what? It's because you're a host.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
I have found that. Yeah, yeah.
And mine isn't really a teaching one, but it is an interest. It's kind of related. It's being talking to the designers on Learning Commons, and it's obvious, very obvious already, that we cannot make decisions without full consultation with the student representatives and academic representatives. So, in terms of creating learning, teaching, and learning spaces, I think that theme alone creates great opportunity for collaboration in terms of getting it right, rather than planners or librarians going ahead saying this is what we want, not only make those decisions based on proper involvement and consultation. I know I'm a little bit off point with that, but it was on my mind, so I threw it in anyway.
No, thanks.
Sorry,
thanks, Niall.
Anya, you were going to go ahead. Come in.
No, I was only just going to say that I suppose one of the purposes of today, as well as obviously hearing people's experience and having people like Sharon and the students speaking to us, was also, we know most of you attending are, you know, part of the teaching and learning librarian community. And I think, speaking on behalf of the committee, what we'd like to see ourselves doing moving forward, we know that this is one area that actually, for all that we informally share and exchange information, I think the librarianship community is very like that. We'll all learn from each other and happily share. We haven't been great at doing something a bit more formal on it. And I think this is an opportunity, because today I'm listening and looking at things that people are doing, even people I see all the time, like Lisa and so on. And I'm thinking, gosh, that's great. That's something I know I need to be doing more of in Maynooth. And, you know, we do a bit too much, I think, of reinventing the wheel, because I think we're very enthusiastic about what we do. And I'm not sure how we get there, but I suppose I'd like to open up the call to everybody, and on the committee, hopefully what we can start doing is putting some opportunities in place for us to maybe more systematize the things that have worked and share them under the umbrella of open resources. and not just the actual resources, because I think sometimes they do have to be customized, but I'm particularly interested, and I know Catherine spoke so effectively, Catherine Cronin spoke so effectively a couple of weeks after the OER, our pedagogical approaches. If I could kind of do one thing in the coming 6 months, I'd love to see us capturing it in materials, resources and toolkits around the approaches and actually the steps. So I really took that from Susan and Jenny's talk and from Lisa's talk, you know, what they did. And like there's elements we've done ourselves, say in Maynooth, and there's elements that we haven't done and I want to take from that. So I suppose today might be a little bit the start of a call to action to the community, and hopefully CONUL Teaching and Learning can be a leader in that for the next few months.
Thanks, Sonia. I see we have 2 hands up. I know we're at time. Niall, am I allowed to go to our 2? So Breda and Therese have. Breda, you had your hand up. Did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks. I'll be brief. I suppose, yeah, I want to echo what Anya said there about, you know, the importance of students, the student voice, and we do talk a lot about the student voice, but I think it needs to become a partnership more. I think we've really listened and heard what students have to say throughout this, and I think we need to continue doing that, but it has to become partnership. And I think that when we look back at things that haven't worked in the past, that's maybe because we haven't really been listening to what students have been saying, or they haven't even been given the space to say what they need to say. And I think that has to be one of the huge changes that we make, and it'll only be an improvement on what we're doing, and it can guide us. So I do think that we really have to learn about that and look at it and see what we can do and work together, I guess.
Thanks, Breda. And Therese, you have your hand up as well. You're still on mute.
Sorry. Okay, now. So I suppose on that, in MTU Cork, formerly CIT, we're applying that partnership model on a practical basis day to day now for creating our new, I suppose, library subject guides really, but they're planning to be an OER with different modules, getting to know your library, referencing, plagiarism, the whole shebang that we're all very familiar with, but with the student input so that they will actually be bothered taking these modules. So we sit around a table every week, 9 of us, 6 students, 3 staff, all on an equal basis. We share the chairing of the meeting, and we run through the actual modules, how they've been created, what they want to see more of, what they want to see less of, what's working, what's not, and we're hoping to have a really good product by the end of May. It's part of the SALT funding, the Advancement in Teaching and Learning funding. And we're hoping to roll out this method of working, possibly to, you know, library engagement working group, where students are kind of on that board, as it were, all working in partnership together, so that we know what we're doing is actually reaching them, and we kind of get the numbers in, and again, that they're bothered coming to see us, that they're bothered doing what we're offering, and what we're mad to try and, you know, tell everyone about. So so as well as the actual OERs, I do think you're right, Anya. We need to record the process of how we went about, you know, recruiting, what the meetings are like, and what the outcomes are for that. As I think it's going to be a huge step forward. It's going to be really useful for everyone, really, in all aspects of our engagement.
Thank you so much for that, and I agree. Yes, that process is going to be really interesting to document and to share. Okay, we've gone past our time, so I'm going to hand back over to Niall.
Thanks very much, Sharon, and thanks for hosting the conversation. I want to, just before we all go out to the snow, I want to thank everybody for involvement this afternoon, to all our library colleagues who have contributed in so many ways, not just the speakers, but the chat was very busy, and the clap, Anya's giving a virtual clap. Also to our guest contributors, our student group who were wonderful, including Rory and most especially Sharon, who is, as usual, I've known Sharon a long time, is highly generous and highly, you know, you learn so much from working with Sharon at all times. So again, Sharon, you've been most generous staying with us all morning, and we provoked a lot of discussion. And I think this group, I've picked up on your tag there of collaboration. I think our teaching and learning group is ideally suited to look at that theme and see what we can come up with. But before I go and let everybody off, it's been a long morning, I want to particularly thank the teaching and learning group. It's highly, I've worked with them 5 years plus. It's the most imaginative, committed, passionate group of people imaginable. They're committed to all things pedagogy, all things teaching and learning. And I think teaching and learning for CONUL is in safe hands with such a group, each and every one of them. So I want to thank each and every one of them for all their hard work. It takes a lot of effort to put a webinar like this into place, and huge amount of time involved. So thanks everybody, have a good day, and hopefully the snow will disappear. Bye-bye everybody, safe journey, keep well.
I think we're just going to keep as well if any of you would like to download the chat, I think we can save it as well, but if anyone does want to download it just for themselves right now, if you click on the three little dots that say more beside where you post a chat, it'll download a file to your downloads area on your laptop, just in case you didn't know about that. And I think we can keep a version as well, because there was so much great ideas and links in the chat. It's lovely to have that to go back to.
Great point, only, yeah. And remember, the talks will be on the CONUL website and on the CONUL YouTube channels as well. So again, thanks to everybody. Thanks, Sharon. And okay, have a good day. Bye.